Hello, podcast fam. Welcome back to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am back today by myself, solo epping, and I'm going to do 2 solos in a row. And the first thing I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to get straight into it, is we're going to do a training episode. So good news for my training gals. But I think this will be a cool episode because we'll touch on a few little things we've touched on before, like always. Everything sort of overlaps. But in particular, we haven't really spoken about this before. And what I'm talking about is the concept or the hype right now of lots of people doing hybrid training. And if you don't know what hybrid training means, it's pretty much just like a combo of training. If we think about people trying to combo going to gym and maybe running, that's super common at the moment, group fitness, Pilates, yoga, basically trying to fit in all of the things that we love. We've kind of labeled that the hybrid training thing. That's a real hype at the moment. So I thought it'd be cool to talk about it because I think even though that sort of term hybrid has become really popular lately, I think people have been trying to navigate this for years, especially if we think about maybe gym and running or like gym and yoga and Pilates. I think that can be a common thing people do. And I think it'd just be cool to kind of talk about the pros and cons of each, how we can balance it all, when we might want to do some things, when it might not be optimal to do some things, etc. And one of the main reasons I want to do this is because, or do this episode and have this convo, is because we speak so much about training on the podcast. And obviously in Eat Like Ruby, we focus predominantly on gym training, resistance training, that sort of thing, which I'm a huge fan of. I love it. Obviously, personally, I love it. In the business, I love it. But I think when people hear us talk about that, we can kind of make it sound like that's the only way and that's the best way. And if we're doing anything else, we're wrong. And that is absolutely not the case. I've said on the podcast before, I think it's so important for people to find the style of training and the type of movement that they enjoy and actually want to get up and do most days. If we think about exercise, we know we want to be exercising regularly, literally for as long as we can, hopefully the rest of our life. You want to find that stuff that you enjoy. You don't want to feel like you have to get up 5 days a week and go to the gym if you actually just hate the gym, or you don't want to feel like you have to go running if you just don't love running. So what I'm getting at there is, I think when we talk about gym training and, you have to have structure and you have to have all these things, and we know I can get all fired up, I never want people to then feel bad or feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't be dabbling in other things like running or group fitness or Pilates or anything like that, because there's absolutely space for these things. I just think it's super important there's kind of 2 things we want to look at here is, what do we enjoy doing? What do we actually want to be doing? But then also, what is our goal? And then just making sure that you've got the right training in place and the right combo of training if you do want to dabble in different things to kind of tick off both of those. Like I said, you want to find the shit that you enjoy. If you're going to be doing this most days for the rest of your life, you want to enjoy it. But then you also don't want to feel like, I think it's very common for people to think, if they don't have a good education or understanding with this stuff, to think the more I can do, the better. So if I can do gym and running and Pilates and group fitness, the more shit I can do, the more often I can do it, the better it is for results. And if we think about everything we've spoken about on the podcast over the years, we know that that's just actually not true. And I'll probably get into that a little bit today. But this is where, again, I think it's important, if you do want to do different styles of training. Maybe you just want to do one style of training that's different to gym and you think, fuck, I've only ever heard Ruby talk about gym. That must be the only thing you should do. If you felt that way, my apologies, because that's definitely not the case. Or if you're someone who is dabbling in a few different things, I think it is just really important to ask those 2 questions. What is it that I actually want to be doing? What do I want my week of training to look like? And then, what is my goal, and do I understand what is required to achieve that goal? And then really trying to find the sweet spot with those 2 things. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And hopefully you can listen today and then maybe walk away with a little bit more insight and kind of understand how you could implement all of this a little bit better. So the first thing I want to say, kind of just following on from that, is if we do anything, whether it's running, group fitness, gym, anything at all, if you're doing something purely because you enjoy it, or for like mental health, stress relief, that sort of thing, if you've got something that you do and it's not really about the physical benefits or body composition changes or anything, it's just like, it makes me feel good, That's awesome. First of all, I love it. Amen. Keep doing it. But this is where I think, again, we just want to make sure that if you had something like that, let's say you're just like, I love running. I absolutely love running. I run all day, every day, whatever. That's all I do. Again, if that sort of ticks the box of the thing that you enjoy, that's awesome. But then if you were over here going, oh, I really, really want big shoulders, but you're never in the gym training shoulders or training upper body, then we're going to have a bit of a disconnect. So that's where I just think it's important, again, to look at those two things and sort of make sure that you're finding the sweet spot with both. So I'm already off topic, but my point there was if you're including some things just because you enjoy them, that's awesome. If you're someone whose whole training looks like that, if you just literally like, I just wake up and wing it. Like if I feel like running, I run. If I want to go to gym, I go to gym. If I might try Pilates today, that's awesome. Whatever. If that's ticking off that big box of just enjoyment, movement, etc., that's really cool. But then again, I think it's just important to tap in and be like, oh, do I have a goal? And the biggest thing with the like body composition goal is if you've got a body composition goal, but you are just kind of winging it and doing whatever you want, that's totally fine. But we can't then be like, oh, why am I not progressing towards XYZ? If you don't really have a plan or a structure or anything in place, and just kind of winging it. It's like anything in life. We talk about this with nutrition. We could talk about this with finances, study, anything at all. If there's no plan, there's no structure. We can't then really question like, oh, why am I not getting the most optimal result? So that's just important to think about if you are someone who's winging it with training. And if you're someone who, like I said before, is in that mentality of just thinking the more I can do, the better. Like I said, that's definitely not the case. And we've spoken about this so many times on the podcast. So I'll try not to get into it too much today and get too repetitive. But in short, we know that we need structure and consistency and repetition and progressive overload in place. We've spoken about these things so many times. So if we do have a goal, let's say, for example, we had a goal to build our legs, we know that we want to have a really well-structured lower body training session or a couple of training sessions in place and repeat those a few times a week, week after week, month after month to actually create that consistency, repetition, structure, progressive overload, everything I was just saying. If we think about progressive overload, we'll touch on that really quickly. Hopefully by now, most of you guys know what that means, but if you're maybe a newbie, basically progressive overload means like we go to the gym or we do whatever style of training we're doing. And then the next time we do it a tiny bit harder, heavier, faster, better, whatever it is, to push that. If we think about the term progressive overload, we're just gradually trying to push a little bit more load onto the body. And if we think about training and we know how training works and the benefits of training and everything, literally the point of training is pushing the body that tiny bit to just be like, shit, this is hard. I need to get better to keep doing this. And if we think about, again, like I said, going to gym and doing lower body sessions a few times a week for 6 months, if we're doing things like squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, etc., we do them, we go home, we rest, recover, we go back a few days later, we do them again, and we think like, oh, could I do an extra rep? Could I put an extra kilo on this? Maybe some weeks we do the extra set, etc. Again, we step back, we look at 6 months, and we've just gradually pushed the body that little bit harder every session. That is literally the point of training. And that's the point of training in any sense. If you wanted to be a runner, if we think about how many people are into running right now, you're gradually trying to progressively overload your body to get it better at running. So you might run 5Ks for a while, and then you'll do 6 for a while, and then 7 for a while, and then maybe you sit at 7 for a while, but you try and do it faster. And there's so many ways we can structure running. Like I won't get into that today, but what I mean here is no matter what when we look at physical goals, no matter what the goal is, we want to have enough consistency in place so that we're repeating the thing that we want to get better at fairly often and fairly regularly, and so that we can push it that little bit more over time so we can create the stimulus. If we think about progressive overload, and we've probably said this on the podcast before, but the point of training is to provide enough stimulus to warrant adaptation. If we think about that sentence, we're trying to, if you think about stimulus, like we're trying to push the body a little bit to warrant adaptation, to again make it say, fuck, that's hard, I need to get better. So what I'm getting at here is, if we've got a goal to get better at running. We want to make sure that we've got that plan in place and that structure in place with running. If we've got a goal to get better legs, we want to make sure we've got that plan and that structure in place with lower body training. If we want to get a heavier hip thrust, like we want to hone in on something like that, we want the structure and the training plan in place to actually warrant the adaptation and the progressive overload with that. So that's the case sort of no matter where we fall with all this stuff. If you've got a physical goal and a body composition goal or a performance goal, you want to keep that in mind and you want to make sure you've got that in place with whatever that goal is. If we bring that back to a person who's thinking, the more I can go to gym and the more shit I can do, the more activities I can be in, the better, as in like the better for body composition. This isn't really the case because there's sort of two things we want to look at here. First of all, we know when we go and do something like this, if we've got a goal to build the lower body, we know that we want to go hit that new level, hit that progressive overload and push the body to a point that it hasn't hit before, and then let the body go into the rest and recovery phase. We know that the growth actually happens in that rest and recovery phase. So if we do go to the gym and do the squats and the deads and the hip thrusts and all those things, we break down the muscles, we've pushed the body like we've pushed it how we want to. We then want to let the body go through its recovery process to actually adapt, like I was saying before, and get that bit better, bigger, stronger, all of those things, and then go again. If someone is just thinking the more I can go, the better, we're going to massively cockblock that rest and recovery, which is where the growth happens. So that's the first issue there, is we're never actually letting the body go through the process of growing and adapting and progressing. The second thing that can happen here is if we're winging it, if we bring this back to like the people that are winging it and also the people that are just randomly smashing it and going to whatever, whenever, and trying to sort of overdo it. If we don't have a plan and a structure and everything in place for the things that we want to work on, we can't actually know that we do have progressive overload in place. If we think about someone that's just like, I just go to gym as often as I can and just smash it and use any equipment and do anything, you might walk in one day and be like, okay, I'm going on the leg press and then I'm going on the chest press and then I'm going to do some hip thrusts and then some sit-ups and then I'll get on the treadmill and like a random as fuck workout. And then if that wasn't planned or there was no structure or there was nothing to that, if you then go back the next week and then kind of walk in, maybe you go at a different time so it's really busy, or maybe you've just had a really busy day so you're not feeling it as much. So you kind of go in and on that day you might just be like, oh yeah, just leg press and chest press and sit-ups and then I'm going home. If we think about that, there's such random sessions and there's no consistency, there's no repetition, therefore there's no progression, therefore there's no progressive overload, therefore there's no adaptation. If we think about adaptation is literally the body changing. If you are training to make your body change, yet you don't have the consistency, repetition, progressive overload, adaptation, rest and recovery, etc. in place, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I just wanted to like rapid fire that because we really need to piece it together and think, if I am just going and like air quote smashing myself, but with no plan and structure, you are essentially just winging it and therefore potentially missing the mark. We can't actually say like, yes, you're definitely progressing through training because your training's random as fuck. And this is a little bit of a side note, here she goes, but I feel like I've maybe said this on the podcast before, but I think it's worth mentioning here. If someone's in that position, you're better off. I think a lot of people don't understand this and don't believe this. If you're like smashing yourself in the gym or you're trying to go as much as you can, but it's very random, it's very up and down, and you don't really enjoy it, you are literally better off going to gym 2 to 3 times a week with a structured program and just being, if you were like, I go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and on Mondays I do lower body, and on Tuesday I do upper body, and on Thursday I do a full body session. This is literally something we do in Eat Like Ruby. If you were to follow the same lower body session for a while and the same upper body session for a while, the same full body session, and progress through those, and then like I said before, each week is a little bit more weight, a few more reps, an extra set here and there, and we really do progress through those things, that's so much more beneficial than someone just going on a Monday, picking a few random things, going again Tuesday, picking a few others, going Wednesday, going Thursday, whatever. Then the next week, they're like, oh, fuck, couldn't get there as much, only went Wednesday, did a few different other random things. If we think about everything we know about training, the person that's definitely going 2 or 3 times, but progressing through very intentional sessions those times is much more beneficial than the person that might go 6 times this week, might go twice next week, might go 5 the week after, but everything is very random. So I feel like that's nothing to do with the hybrid stuff, but just worth mentioning. So if we think about that and think about the fact that when we know what our goal is, we want to make sure we've got a consistent, structured program in place to optimize progress towards that goal. This is where we then want to start looking at the hybrid stuff, or the fact that you might want to dabble in a few different things and then work out what those individual goals are. Because someone might say, okay, yeah, I really want to grow my lower body and I also really want to get better at running. Right, so for that person, we might go, okay, cool, it makes sense for you to go to gym 2 times a week and do 2 heavy, structured, progressive lower body sessions, and then it makes sense for you to run 2 to 3 times a week. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that program. This is what I want to point out, because I think people can think, oh, I have to be in the gym and I have to do upper body and I have to do this. And like, we probably should do a little bit of resistance training on the whole body just for overall strength and bone density and all of the things that we know for health. But if we really look at a person with those goals, like I said, it's important to break down those goals and then formulate the training plan where you can factor all of those things in and make sure you've actually got the right structure in place to progress towards each of your individual goals. And then on the flip side, if somebody says, I don't have a running goal at all, I don't have any of those goals. If you think about myself right now, my goal is 100% just muscle gain, strength. So I'm literally in the gym 5 days a week, lifting weights. I don't give a fuck about running. I don't give a fuck about group fitness or anything like that right now, because I'm very clear on my goal and I also enjoy gym training. So tying in those 2 points from the very start, it just makes sense for me to do that. If we keep looking at the different styles that people want to bring in, if somebody said, I really want to grow my glutes, but then I also love going to group fitness with my friends every Saturday morning. It's just a fun class. We love it, whatever. Again, we might look and then go, okay, cool. Get 2 really good structured glute sessions in place every week. Maybe you do an upper session as well. Maybe you do a run if you enjoy that stuff, whatever it is. And then we know we leave a space on Saturday morning for you to go and do your group fitness class with your friends. And really looking at that, again, ticking off those 2 goals, because, okay, the physical goal that you have is that you want to grow your glutes. Awesome. We've got structure in place for that. And then the enjoyment piece for you was, I really want to go to my group fitness class with my friends. You've ticked that off as well. And this is where my famous quote will come in here. There's no right or wrong, because there isn't. If someone says, I love going to group fitness class on Saturday morning with their friends, this is why I would never sit here and just be like, group fitness is fucking shit, rah, rah, rah. Group fitness might not be the most optimal thing for a person who wants to progress towards a muscle gain goal. Because if we think about everything we've spoken about, we need progression, we need this, we need that. If you're going to group fitness class and those classes are random every week, we can lose that progression, that consistency, the repetition, etc. But if you're going to group fitness class because your goal is social fitness and mental health and cardio fitness, then that's awesome. So again, bring it back to that quote of no right or wrong. It's not like gym is right, group fitness is wrong, running is wrong, Pilates is right. It's really saying, what is it that I actually want to get out of this thing? And then how do I tie that into my week? What do I want to get out of everything? And how do I tie them all into my week to actually formulate a smart, structured program? And if you're in Eat Like Ruby, you can ask me about this and I'll talk about it for days, obviously. But I think that's the really important thing, is being clear on what you want to get out of each thing. And each one of these things is going to have its own benefit, even if we do look at physical results. I think when most women, and I just speak predominantly to women because we have so many women in Eat Like Ruby and everything, but I think when most women think about physical results, we think body composition, toning, fat loss, etc. But also if we think about the term physical results, we can think about things like cardio fitness, endurance, stamina, mobility, if we start looking at yoga, Pilates, core strength, all of those things. So each of these things, like group fitness, running, Pilates, gym, can all absolutely serve a purpose and they all have benefits. There's definitely, like I said, none of them are right or wrong, but you want to really understand, okay, this thing that I'm doing, this is the benefit, this is what it could bring to my life, this is how it could potentially affect something else I'm doing maybe in a negative way. If we think about someone, again, if you've gone and done like a super heavy leg session on Friday and it was awesome and you've hit all your lifts and it was progressive and it was ticking all the boxes like we say, and then you go to group fitness on Saturday and they're like, woo, jump squat day, and you're like, motherfucker, my legs are cooked, then there might be a little bit of a conflict there. But then again, it purely comes down to the individual saying, okay, yeah, maybe this does kind of affect my glute growth a tiny bit, whatever, but I still just fucking love this class with my friends, so I'm doing it. So that's where it's just really important to know that none of them are more superior than others. It just depends on what it is you're trying to work towards and making sure that you understand how they'll all come into play there. So then if we look at someone who wants to set up a week of hybrid training, whatever that looks like for you, that's kind of what we're going to talk about now, depending on what you want to factor in. But what I would be doing straight away is literally writing a list of my goals. Like, what do I actually want to get out of my training? What do I want to achieve? Do I want to have better looking legs, like stronger, more built legs? Do I want to have better shoulders? Do I want to improve my 5K run time? Like, let's say those were your 3 random goals. But I feel like that could actually be really common for a lot of people. Then I would, like I said, first of all, get very clear on the physical things that you want to get out of your training. I would also then look and say, is there anything that is a big priority to me in terms of the enjoyment or the mental health, the stress relief, whatever? Do I have a group fitness class that I love to go to on the weekend with my friends? Or do I love to run every Saturday with my friend? Anything that you know is kind of a fixed thing in your week, whether it works for your goals or not, but you're like, no, I definitely want to keep this thing in my week. I would get clear on that, because if you then sit down and you go, okay, maybe with that, I do run every Saturday with my best friend. I love it. Then we get breakfast, we get coffee. Awesome. Again, I would never say to take that away, because there's so many benefits there physically and mentally. And then if we went back to the actual physical goals, if you said, yeah, I want to grow glutes, shoulders, and I want to work on my run time, I would then start to break that down and go, okay, cool. I need to obviously be training glutes every week. I need to be training shoulders every week, and I need to be running every week. How many times do I want to train realistically? How many times do I think I'm going to get in the gym, and etc. And then really just structure it and break it down and say, okay, so if it suits me to go to gym Monday, I'll do glutes on Monday, I'll do legs on Monday. If I know that my legs are probably going to be pretty sore, I won't tee up a run for Tuesday. Sore legs, running, maybe not the best thing. So maybe then I'll pencil in the run Wednesday. By default, then I'm doing my shoulder session on Tuesday. And you can really start to piece it all together like that. And then I would step back, and again, you might go, okay, cool, then I'll hit legs again one more time on Thursday, etc. And then really just step back and again go, okay, cool, what were my goals? Have I got shit in my training that's clearly going to progress me towards those goals? What were my non-negotiable things I want to do for fun? Are they in there too? Perfect. And then step back and look at the schedule and go, does this schedule actually work for me? Because I think a common thing people can do then is just be like, okay, fuck, I've put it all in and now I'm training 16 times this week. So I think it's important to just step back and actually look at the schedule that you come up with and go, am I actually going to do this realistically, etc. And there might be times where you've got to look and go, okay, cool, maybe I can't do it all. So am I willing to sacrifice on something right now? Am I willing to scale back on something right now? Am I just willing to think that this thing might take me a little bit longer? If I can only fit in 1 run instead of 3, again, that's not wrong. It's not right to run 3, wrong to run once or whatever. But you just got to be able to look and go, okay, cool, it might just take me a bit longer to get that 5K time that I wanted, etc. But I'm working on my glutes, I'm working on my shoulders, I've got my run sesh with my bestie, life is good. So I'll say it for the 10 millionth time in my life, but there's no right or wrong. You really just want to be able to piece together all of those things and really understand. I feel like I just think of all my Eat Like Ruby gals and I'm like, they get this, they're good, so you're good. But if you are a newbie or you're still kind of learning all this stuff, again, that's awesome. Welcome. I love it. I love that you're getting after it. But we really do want to understand that it's not about how much we can do, how often we can do, like how much we can smash ourselves. We know we need the rest, the recovery, all those things. Even if we think about what I just said, if we're going to train legs Monday, we don't want to be running a marathon Tuesday. So you really want to make sure you understand what is required for your goals and understand that rest and recovery is as much of a factor in that as the training itself. And the last little thing I'll say is you can change this over time as your goals change over time. We don't want to change this every single week because then we lose everything that I've just spoken about with consistency and repetition and progression. But if you set yourself maybe like a 10-week training block or a 12-week training block or something where you say, okay, cool, I am going to do that. Legs Monday, shoulders Tuesday, run Wednesday, etc. And you progress through that for your 10 weeks or however long you put in place. And then you get to the end of that and you might go, okay, cool. Now I've actually really got a goal to grow my back or to take up bike riding or whatever. I'm going to sub out my running for bike riding, like anything at all. And then you just want to go through that process again. So I think it's just cool to be open-minded that we don't have to be so committed to just one thing or like this is the only thing that's going to get results, doing anything else is shit, etc. We can absolutely fit in so many different things and your goals and your training style can change over time. But I think the biggest thing, if you take nothing else, obviously we know the number one value in Eat Like Ruby is education. I want people to just actually understand what is required to achieve your goal and also how what you're currently doing might be adding up for your goal or against it, etc. And just have the real understanding, education, awareness of all those things. So like I've said in recent weeks, I want to do some more Q&A episodes over the coming weeks. We did one, I think last week. But if you've got questions about this sort of stuff, this would be cool, guys. If you've got questions about fitting in different styles of training or hybrid training or what to do and what days and what to do for your goal or whatever, keep your eye out because we'll do the Q&A box for a few more Q&A episodes. And I think there could be some cool things that come up with this convo. So keep your eye out for that if you are following Eat Like Ruby on Instagram. If you're not, what are you doing? And follow the Eat Like Ruby podcast on Instagram as well because sometimes we chuck the Q&A box up over there. But I think that is all from me today. I would love to hear any questions that you guys have about this because we could definitely keep this convo going. I don't think the hybrid thing is going anywhere. I don't think the running thing is going anywhere. We could even get Shaq back in maybe to talk about this stuff because he's a full-blown hybrid. He's gym, swim, run, bike, all of the things all day, every day. So he might have something cool to say. I'm actually sick of getting Shaq in here because he's always just like, oh, I can't get a word in. And I'm like, yes, you actually can. We're sick of you saying that, Shaq. So I will get him back in and he can get a word in about the hybrid stuff because he's a bit of an expert on that. So we'll keep this convo going maybe in the next few weeks, but I hope you guys learned something from that like always, and I will be back next week.